David O'Leary, chairman of the board of O'Leary Paint Company, is a native Lansingite, and his wife Janet, and their 7 wonderful children. Dave attended St. Mary's High School and was graduated from the University of Notre Dame. Dave, how'd you get started in the paint business?
Well, after graduating from college, I had an obligation to serve 2 years, as everyone did at that time, in the military, and I served 2 years in the Army in downtown Boston in the Finance Corps. And at that point, when I was released from the Army, I was very anxious to get started on a career, and the family business was available. There was no one in my family interested in it, and the media age of the people working there was, at that point, quite high, I felt. So I was anxious to get in, and I could see some opportunities to expand that, and so that's how I really got started. It was a family business that went back a couple of generations.
What were some of the greatest problems that you encountered?
Well, I think that the greatest problem is that it became obvious to me when I joined the company that our future couldn't be wrapped up in doing what we were doing. We were distributing national brand Sherwin-Williams paint in 5 counties here in central Michigan, and we were limited to that, and we were one of only 3 situations like that in the country that Sherwin-Williams had all their own stores and went to market in their own stores. And so I just felt that there was no future for us. And so we decided that we wanted to go our own way. We would develop a label, and we would hope to build it up to the point where we could start manufacturing ourselves and control our destiny. That was really the way to do it. I thought through that, I could be able to develop it to the point where I could have an income out of it that would be decent for me, or hopefully decent enough so someone else in the family might be interested in joining later. So at that point, it was kind of an interesting challenge, because the only thing we had going for us, leaving the best known name in the paint industry, Sherwin-Williams Paint, was our name that we had had for 80 years, Silver Lead Paint Company. But at that particular point, that became the dirtiest word in the English language, lead paint. And so no one could, in their right mind, could put that on a label for paint. So we had to walk away from that, and we decided to use our own name, which was certainly not well known, but it wasn't a foreign name in the paint industry, because most of the large paint companies were family names, like Sherwin-Williams and Benjamin Moore, and Pratt and Lambert and Kelly Moore and O'Brien Paint. So we did capitalize on our own name. We developed our own new logo and developed our own labels, and we got another manufacturer to make the product for us until we were ready till we had enough volume to justify the manufacturing. And that happened in 1980, and so we started manufacturing in a building we purchased in the north end of town, and we were there for 10 years until we built the new manufacturing facility of 45,000 square feet on the corner of Baker and Cedar Street, which was the old Rio property, and we were the first ones to enter that area. And from there, we started opening our own stores in cities around the state. And at this point, we have a number of cities, from Traverse City and Muskegon and Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Ann Arbor, and a number of cities around the state. And it's been, we consider it's been successful. It's worked for us.
It has indeed. As you know, the property where your company now stands was originally purchased by Lieutenant Luther Baker with some of his reward money for capturing John Wilkes Booth, murderer of President Lincoln. I understand also that your accumulation of that property, the Rio property and so forth, I thought that was an interesting story.
Well, at that point, the property had sat empty and no one had done anything with it. The way it was torn down, there was a fire and they pretty well just turned everything over, and so it wasn't hauled away, so there were areas where there was contamination, and that had to be corrected, and we really were dealing with the city, and there's some people on the council that felt we just cap it and forget it, but we were anxious to see it developed, and some others were anxious, and so the city was very cooperative, and they were able to get money from Rio because they were responsible for the contamination and clean the property up, and they did an excellent job in cleaning it up and giving us a clean site. And so we purchased and built there, and now all that, I think it's 32 or 35 acres, they're all occupied and paying taxes to the city.
Great. Now, I understand you've undertaken a second career.
Yes. About 27 years ago, when I could see that I was turning over the interest in our company to my sons that were working there and taking a step backward, I was having lunch with a friend, and we were talking about the fact that there was no local community bank that was headquartered here in Lansing. And it just felt like that was a shame, because you really need bank involvement to develop a city, to have things happen. And so we said, well, let's start a bank. And so we had meetings. We met with a group of people and asked them to help finance to get it started. We wrote and got information of how to do it, and we opened our first bank. And that was financed by just local people, and we just went out and had meetings to get them to invest in it, and mostly on a promise that we could pay them back and that it would work. And it did. And the bank, we were able to hire some excellent people that knew banking. None of us pretended to know banking, but we knew what we wanted to do. And so it was successful almost instantly. And then we said, well, if it's good here, let's try it in another city. And the second bank was in Kalamazoo that we opened, again with hiring local people, and they had the connections, and we were able to finance that locally in Kalamazoo, and then in Ann Arbor. And then we formed a holding company and went public, and were listed on New York Stock Exchange, and we just went ahead with that program of financing half locally and half out of our headquarters, different banks around the country, to the point at this stage we have 64 banks in 17 states. And our stock is listed on the exchange, and like all stock, we've had ups and downs, but it's worked very well, I think, for the investors. And this is a tough period for banks, but we feel we're adequately capitalized, and we will be here. And I think the future for community banks is a good one. I think there's just a spot for community banks, and that's the one we're in, and we're happy about it.
Wonderful. Thank you very, very much,
all right,
Dave, for this window on Lansing. We are very proud to have you as one of our own. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll leave this with you so you can